Hello, beautiful souls. My name is Jessie, and welcome back to another episode of Rewire To Inspire. This show where we'll dive into self-love, learn tangible ways to rewire the brain, and discovering your soul's purpose. The goal of Rewire To Inspire is to encourage listeners to begin doing the hard work, to get curious and open to maximizing your life. Our mindset shapes how we live. Depending on life events, traumas, and personal experiences, our mindsets are all vastly different. However, one thing we all have in common is the ability to rewire our mind, to change the narrative, and to pivot our lives. I hope you leave each episode with the belief that you are so worthy to live a life true to you. I look forward to chatting with you every single Tuesday and Thursday and helping you grow exponentially in all areas of your life. Without further ado, here's today's episode. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to my podcast, Rewire To Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am super excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 123. I hope you guys are all having an amazing day. I am recording today's episode on Sunday morning. It is May 7th today, and the sun has come out to play today. So I am super excited to finish recording. However, even in saying that, I'm super excited to be jumping on here, but I'm excited for an afternoon spent outside enjoying some spring weather. I feel like we've just been getting a lot of rain and gloomy days, and so I'm very, very excited to go outside later on and enjoy and soak up some sunshine. If you missed last episode, number 122, Are Your Standards Too Low? I definitely encourage you guys to go check out that episode as well as Tuesday's episode. Both of last week's episodes that came out, I got a ton of feedback from all of you guys. So thank you so much. If you ever tune in and you feel like, you have something that you want to share with me, or you have feedback, or even just letting me know that you tune in means the absolute world to me. I promise you guys it beyond makes my day. So if you're ever feeling pulled to connect, I would absolutely love that. So without further ado, for today's episode number 123, we are going to be talking about, and this is an exciting one, 4 ways to really work towards ending overthinking. So 4 ways to stop overthinking. And so you must be thinking, like, this is the recipe for a great life, because we all overthink. We all overthink everything in life. And I think the reason that we do this, in fact, I know the reason that we do this, is because we're trying to connect all the dots. We're trying to have it all figured out. We're trying to make sure there's no area for anything to go wrong. But what that leads to is us stressing ourselves out, making ourselves anxious, overworking our brain, and really leading to not living the most happy, aligned life, because we're just spending so much of it in our head in contemplation. And the thing is we all have so many thoughts a day, an insane amount of thoughts. So many, in fact, that we don't even know or have noticed all of our thoughts, right? If I asked you right now, if you could think about every single thing that you thought about yesterday, you wouldn't be able to tell me, because thoughts come and go sometimes in ways that we don't even recognize that it's happening. Our brain's just always going. It is always going. And this is why I think some of us struggle in the beginning with meditation, because we're like, I can't get the thoughts to stop, and they just keep going. So just know that it's kind of our brain's job to do that, but we do have the ability to train it in a way to choose which thoughts we really want to have control. So you know how sometimes we have a thought and, it's almost like some of them just pass by. There's like 2 analogies I like to use. Either like clouds in the sky, we can just observe them, we're watching them go. But another example I like to use is you're at a train station and the trains are going to keep going by. Those are your thoughts. However, some trains go by, you might jump on because you might think that that's the train you need to be on. And so you let it take you away, and then you're like, nope, that wasn't the one. And then you get on another train. So the goal of today is for you to really decide which trains, aka which thoughts, you want to buy, which ones you want to invest your time and energy in. And also knowing that you have the control to do that. You have the ability to choose which thoughts. I'm going to say the word buy a lot today. You buy into, you allow to take your time, you allow to go down that rabbit hole. And so And also, I apologize, you guys. My allergies are a little bit bad today. So if my voice sounds a little off more than usual, that is what's going on. That fun spring allergy season that a lot of us deal with, but I know I deal with pretty badly. So anyways, so sometimes we do notice thoughts, and they are typically thoughts that we don't like, right? The ones that we normally invest our time and energy into are the ones that we don't like. And we end up ruminating and catastrophizing. And really what that does is it robs us of being in the present moment, and it takes a lot of our energy. Think of a time that even in the last 24 hours where you had a thought and you bought into it and then it led you down a rabbit hole. This happened to me last night when I was at an event. I had a thought come into my mind that was a little bit negative, and I found that I wasn't present in the physical room that I was in for a couple of minutes because I had just allowed this thought to take my attention. And we do that so much, especially if we have a lot going on in our life, if we've had a lot of past experiences that might be kind of negative or hurtful, if we're overly stressed out, if we have a lot on our plate. It can be really, really easy to buy into these thoughts because it's almost like it feels like they're controlling us more than we're controlling them. And so that is the goal of today, is for you guys to start to recognize that that doesn't have to be the case, right? It's almost like our thoughts are like lenses of a glass, like glasses, and they're the lens in which we see the world. And if your lens is that the world is negative or harsh or bad, you're most likely going to live your life looking through that lens. But if we can rewire that and change your lens to view your thoughts as something different, as kind and loving and messages, we're going to view the world differently. And so really, I want to clear our lenses today, provide you guys with some tips and tricks that can help you to stop overthinking. And so the way in which I'm going to do this is a term that I learned when I was studying social work called cognitive diffusion or cognitive fusion. So basically they are the opposites of each other. D meaning basically like turning it off, and fusion meaning binding them together. And so what we want to practice is cognitive diffusion. So I'm going to start with cognitive fusion first because that's the one I think a lot of us are most familiar with, even if you don't know the term. So cognitive fusion is basically everything I just said. That is the buying into every thought that passes through your mind. It's when you think something and you don't even notice it and you just believe it. Think about a time that you've told yourself something negative and you didn't even go into contemplation. You just agreed with it. I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb. I'll never get that job. I'll never be worthy of that. Oh, I could never start that business because blank. Oh, that person doesn't like me because blank. We don't even allow ourselves the opportunity to look at that thought in a way that is realistic and is, less hurtful because we're just buying it and believing it right away. And so that is what cognitive fusion is. It's really that buying into every thought that we have. And so an example of this for me is something that I struggle with that I'm working on is growing my M brain, my logic brain, that part of my brain that is mathematics, probability, logistics, statistics, all of those things. For so long, I have kind of pushed those aside because I struggle with them, and we avoid the things in which give us fear or overwhelm us. And so for me, a lot of my life, I spent avoiding that part of my brain. However, now being an entrepreneur and looking to, I have big plans is all I'll say. I have big plans for my future and in the mission that I'm on. But I know I can only be successful to the extent in which I work on my M brain. Because if I'm going to be an entrepreneur and I do not understand numbers, I'm not going to be very successful. It just makes sense. And so a couple weeks ago, my coach recommended this book called Algorithms to Live By. And this book is very M focused, meaning it is very math focused. It is very probability focused. And I was probably 3 pages into this book and I was massively, massively overwhelmed. And my thoughts were coming in and are saying, you're so stupid. You're never going to understand this. You don't understand math. This is never going to change, basically. And I just had all these thoughts and I was buying into all of them. So much so that I bought into them to the point that I put the book down and I haven't picked it back up yet because I'm terrified of it. That is an example of cognitive fusion. I am associating a belief with a thought and then acting accordingly because I've convinced myself that that is true. However, the good news is that we can work on this. I wouldn't be talking about this really if there wasn't a way that we can rewire our brain and change this for ourselves. However, I want you to know that with everything that I teach you guys, it's not a flick of a switch. It takes time, it takes practice. You got to think about it. You are literally rewiring the neurostructure of your brain. That takes time to do, especially when a lot of what's been wired has happened between the ages of 0 and 5, right? That limbic part of our brain, which controls our emotions and memory and all those things, regulation. And so a lot of those beliefs have been ingrained in me at such a young age. And so it's going to take time, you guys, to rewire your thought patterns, rewire your thinking. And so I just encourage you guys to be gentle with yourself, to be kind with yourself, to be patient with yourself as you go through this process. But just know that as much as you're even trying and noticing, that's already a step. If you're able to be aware and conscious of these things and are doing the work, you're already one step ahead of the majority of the population, because I think there's a huge misconception in that the thoughts that we have are our thoughts forever. The beliefs that we have are our beliefs forever, which is simply not true. So moving on to cognitive fusion. So that would be the opposite of diffusion. So cognitive diffusion is a skill of being able to have a thought and by a thought. It teaches you to separate yourself from the thought. This can help you to have power over your thoughts instead of them running the show. So this is being able to really decipher yourself apart from your thought. So think of a time again that you've told yourself something negative, and a part of you knows it's not true, but because you had that thought, you're like, it must be true. This process of diffusion is basically being able to separate those, being able to separate yourself from the thought of saying, hey, I know that that's not really true. I know that that's maybe a thought or belief I've had in the past, or that's just my negative bias coming in to protect me, but I know that that's not really my belief. And so that is the process that we're going to talk about in these 4 ways that we can stop overthinking. But the term, if you guys are curious, is cognitive diffusion, if you've never heard that before. So now let's get into the ways to do this. If you are home, I encourage you to grab a pen and paper to join along with me. If you are driving, no worries. This is definitely something that you can still do later or in the moment. I know exactly what it's like to not know where to turn, to feel alone, helpless, and stuck. My goal as a coach is to help clients from a trauma-informed perspective see your worth and develop self-belief so you may chase your dreams and trust your intuition to live the most aligned, fulfilling life possible. If you're looking to elevate your life to the next level but aren't sure where to start, I would absolutely love to connect. If you're feeling pulled or curious, please use the link in the show notes below to book your free call. I look forward to connecting and supporting you on your own unique journey. But of course, the first step with most things is awareness. Because if we don't have awareness, what are we doing? What part of us is running? What part of us is communicating? What part of us is leading? What part of us is driving? We need to have awareness in whatever it is that we're doing, and conscious awareness. And so the first way that we can start to look at our thoughts differently and stop overthinking is to write down all the thoughts that you have in your mind. And so you might be thinking, Jessie, do you really want me to sit there with a pen and paper all day, every day and write my thoughts down? Absolutely not. This is a practice that we should do every day for a minute or two. Just sit and basically, I call it like vomit journaling. Really cute name. Or it's basically where I'll grab my journal and I'll just write thoughts that are coming to my head. This is actually how I started journaling, because in the beginning I'm like, what in the heck am I going to talk about? And so I just started by writing down every thought that came to my mind. And so I encourage you, if you're home and you're able to grab a pen and paper, or you can even verbally out loud say, if you want to pause this podcast and try this practice, set a timer for a minute or two and just blurt out, write down. Writing is more beneficial, but if you can't speak, write down all the thoughts that come to your mind. This is so stupid. I never thought this was possible. I'm not thinking about anything. Oh, that is a thought, I guess. I gotta get groceries later. Notice what comes up for you. And take a second to do that. The second thing I want you to do is really off of that, I want you to write down in front of all that, I'm having the thought that. I'm having the thought that this is stupid. I'm having the thought that I have to get groceries later. I'm having the thought that it's a spring day. I'm having the thought that blank, insert thing here. The next thing you need to do is I notice that I'm having the thought that. I notice that I'm having the thought that I'm recording a podcast right now. I notice that I'm having the thought that I have tea beside me that I can't wait to drink. I notice that I'm having the thought that my voice sounds a little off. So we're really just starting to write it down. I'm having the thought that, I'm noticing I'm having the thought that. And then take a second to notice your thoughts and notice yourself noticing them. Sit there right now and just ground yourself and just notice. Watch the train go by. Watch the clouds go by. Notice that you have them even without cognitively thinking about them. They just come and go. Which is super interesting when we start to pause and practice mindfulness and bring awareness to how our body just autonomically responds to things. It's super interesting as we just allow life to pass us by. We think so many things are normal because they're just the way that they've been our whole life. And so we don't really think that we have the ability and the capability to change that. And so I hope that even just that small practice allowed you to look at your thoughts versus allowing them to control you. And so also knowing that our thoughts are not always accurate. In fact, for the most part, they're not accurate. They're normally negative. They're trying to hold us back. They're trying to keep us safe. They are minimal thinking. They are closed-minded thinking. And because, again, that's how our brain's been wired for years and years and years and years and years. And so it makes sense, but we can change that. Okay, the next step. Oh my gosh, you guys, I keep getting hairs in my mouth, and I looked at my microphone cover and I realized it's because, I'm sorry if that was loud, there is so many cat hairs on this thing. I think I share this every podcast episode, but it's wicked annoying. I need to hide my microphone better from my cat because this is terrible. Oh my gosh. Okay. The second step to stop overthinking. This one's kind of fun. It's to name your thoughts. Give it a name. Give them a name. What I like to do is I have thoughts that I call my hummingbird thoughts, which is, again, I've referred to as, that's what I call my higher self. So I like to have hummingbird thoughts, and then I like to just have like my watcher thoughts. But you could name it Sally, George, Jeff, whatever you want. Give your thoughts a name. That allows you, basically the practice of all this, of cognitive diffusion, is to separate yourself from your thoughts. And so by giving it a name, you're giving it basically its own identity that is separate from you. So it's a lot easier to say, hey, Sally, stop being so negative. Hey, Sally, stop being so rude. Hey, Sally, that wasn't helpful. See, so it's really helpful and beneficial in a way to name your thoughts and give them a name. So that is the second thing, is to give your thoughts a name to separate yourself from your thoughts. Okay? Which is a weird practice, but I encourage you to try and just notice how it feels. Number 3, this one's fun, and I remember doing this with some of my clients back when I was doing counseling, one-on-one work, is to give that inner dialogue like a funny voice externally. So saying it out loud in a funny voice. So let's say, for example, your thought is, I'm so ugly. Out loud, you can be like, I'm so ugly. I'm so ugly. I'm so ugly. You start to laugh, right? It's funny. You're saying it out loud, and it almost lessens the power that it has in your mind, because now your mind's like, okay, that's just a joke. That's funny. That's cute, right? And so saying it out loud also turns it into a jumble of words, which starts to make it not make sense. Have you ever said a word over and over and over again, and to the point that you're like, what are words? What is life? You know, like say banana 50 times and tell me that it's not a word anymore. It doesn't make sense. Banana, 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 banana. It starts to just sound like a bunch of jumble of words. If we can practice externally doing that with our thoughts, especially those thoughts that aren't helpful or are hurting us, it starts to lessen their power and lessen their significance, which is actually a really fun practice. I used to like to do that one with kids. If I ever had any youth clients, that was my favorite thing to do with them, because we see that so much in adolescence now, is just a lot of negative self-talk, and it breaks my heart, but I also know that I resonate with that because that was me, so I understand. But singing it and saying it in a silly voice. And so I want you to reflect on everything we've said so far, because you might be sitting there thinking like, how is this gonna help? Each of these is gonna help you in a different way. And one of these tips might help you more than the others. For me, a huge one is writing it down, giving it a name, and then saying it out loud in a funny voice. But sometimes if I'm out and about and I don't really have the ability to say my negative thoughts in a funny voice, even just giving it a name and saying, okay, that wasn't a hummingbird thought, I'm not gonna buy into it, is a practice that takes time, but you can get there. And so there's ways to just start small and build. So start with writing down, just noticing your thoughts. Even once a day, setting a timer for 30 seconds. What am I thinking about? The whole point of really any kind of trauma work, healing work, whatever, is to just be conscious and mindful of what the mind and body are doing automatically. How is it that you're able to interrupt those so that you're not jumping on that train? You're not allowing them to swift you away and ruin your beautiful day and your beautiful life, because we sometimes jump onto the wrong trains and we regret it, but know that you can get off and park at any time and begin to just be an observer again. So the last thing that I have for you guys is to symbolically put our thoughts into objects, associating your thoughts with an object. So this could look something like, I have a negative thought and I associate that with this mug. Every time I have that thought, I'm going to carry this mug around with me until I get to the point that I'm like, why am I carrying this mug around with me? This is so annoying. This isn't helping me. And I put it down and I'm like, okay, how can I also release that thought at the same time? Sometimes that association of a thing with a thought can help us. It's the same with gratitude. Whenever I get to a traffic light and it is red, I tell myself 3 things that I'm grateful for. So I'm associating an object with a thought. So if we're able to associate an object with a negative thought, we can kind of do the same thing to bring awareness to what it is. So maybe every morning when you're drinking your morning tea or coffee, that can be your practice to notice what your thoughts are. Every time I take a drink, I'm going to notice what I'm thinking about. Every time I pick up a mug, I'm going to notice what I'm thinking about. And so choosing an object can just help you to take this practice one step further and begin to associate things with thoughts. And so you're basically automatically priming your mind to think about those things. So that is a super fun one. A couple last points for you guys that are helpful to ask yourself is this thought helpful or serving me? If the answer is no, how can I let it go? Where is it stemming from? What is it trying to teach me or tell me? How can I notice it, thank it, and then release it? I always say catch it, change it, release it. We have the ability to do that. Do I want to buy this thought, or am I going to allow the train or clouds to pass through? Creating space between yourself and the thought. There is a differentiation there. Are you able to decipher between the two? You can, it just takes time to do so. And then the last thing is something I struggled with, so I want to make sure I mention, is don't get obsessed with fighting thoughts. Don't get so hyper-focused on trying to suppress them, because thoughts are helpful. It's the same when people say, I don't want to have survival techniques. I don't want to go into fight, flight, freeze anymore. And I have to provide context in that the reason that we have those are to help us. It is to save us in dangerous situations. Our thoughts do serve a purpose, right? They serve a purpose. They help us understand the world. They help us to contemplate. But because so many of our thoughts aren't helpful, it's really, really powerful that we don't want to fight them off and not have them, but instead we want to form a relationship with them. We want to get to know them and decipher ourselves from negative thoughts that might be ruminating and running our life. And so noticing them instead of fighting them. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode, 4 ways to stop overthinking. I know it can sound like a lot. I know it can sound impossible. I know it can sound like, that'll never be me. That'll never be realistic for me. I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that could be like. That is okay. I know exactly what it's like to be at the beginning of this journey, and I'm still working on this immensely. But these tools have helped me so, so much. And so I knew I had to come on here and share them with you guys in the hopes that it helps even one person. So If you guys enjoyed today's episode and you are feeling pulled to do so, I would absolutely love if you could leave a review below. Share this with someone you think would enjoy. It is how I grow the show. You guys have been so amazing, so thank you again. And I look forward to chatting with you all on Thursday. Bye, you guys. Thank you all so much for tuning into today's episode of Rewire to Inspire. I absolutely love connecting with you all, so make sure you're following me on Instagram. I am at Jessie Brown 13. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to leave a review or share with someone you think would enjoy. I look forward to chatting with you all next episode. And remember, get out of your head and into your heart.